In this video, you're going to learn Glide from Oscar Brooks, the CEO of V88, one of the premier Glide agencies. If after this video you want to check out Oscar's full courses on building in Glide, check the link in the description to go to No Code MBA. Let's go ahead and get into this video.
Okay, so roles and permissions and assignment. So the first thing I want to just cover here is that, as you will have seen, Glide has a role column. And what I'm going to suggest here is not to use it if you want to build out kind of roles and permissions within an application. If data security is not essential. And what I mean by that is you could build out roles and permissions using the model that I'm going to show you today, which doesn't hide data. It doesn't actually securely hide data from users who technically can't see it. But the roles and permissions we're talking about here are more to do with a team within an organization who have certain users who can't add things or edit things and are kind of more read-only, and certain users who have those admin permissions where they can basically do everything. So that's the kind of difference between the two. And the role column was implemented by Glide as a security feature, and it's a column that you can apply row owners to. So which we went through if we hop over to the candidate app, we look at our candidates. We've been through row owners briefly. You can also row owner a role column, but it's slightly more rigid and less intuitive than the method that I'm going to show you today, and that is basically building a custom permissions model. So we're going to go into our applications, into our applicant admin portal here, and I jotted down some of the roles and permissions that I thought we could have here. And obviously the first type of user is going to be your admin user, which is basically how we've been using this app so far. The user that can do everything, that can add items, edit items, delete items, change statuses, all of that stuff, your top level administrator. And then I thought about another type of user that perhaps doesn't need full permissions, but needs to be able to kind of manage particular applications, let's say. And so I came up with this idea of the role of a user called a recruiter. And so what we're going to do is we're going to build out some permissions, and we're going to allow an admin user to add users to this app, but also to specify their role, to say that they're either an admin or they're a recruiter, and then we're going to view as both and configure the logic around what the recruiter can actually do. Okay, so I hope this is really useful, and 9 times out of 10, if you're building a relatively high level piece of software for a business, there's going to be more than one role involved in the users. So this will hopefully be great. So the way we're going to do this is, as I say, not by using the role column. So what we're going to do here is we're going to have a table of permissions. And this is, in my experience, the best way to achieve a really clean and simple way to manage permissions. B, to allow you to look into the data as the developer and actually see all of your permissions and change them on the fly in the back end. And also it allows you to build on them and add more using the same technique, and add complex permissions and logic around who can do what, without adding all of your logic straight into the UI. And you'll see what I mean by this as I go. But what a lot of people will do, okay, and this is probably what you'd immediately think to do. Let's say, for example, you don't want, we'll pick an example. So Oscar, the user we're viewing as currently, hello at v88.co.uk. So you might think, okay, I don't want Oscar to be able to add candidates. So you'd immediately think, well, I'll come in here and I'll say, where are we? In the action. And on this, you might say, okay, I want to change it where user profile email is not hello at v88.co.uk. Now that will hide it, but that's just sort of doing it for me, and you're kind of forcing a particular user into it. And then if you had another user that you didn't want to be able to add things, then you'd have to add another condition, and suddenly you get all of this super complex conditional logic sort of plugged into the app directly without predefining it first somewhere. And it just, when you build something with complexity, you'll lose that lovely clarity that you'd get from the method that we're going to use. So here's what we do. We build a new table, and this table is going to be called user permissions. Okay, and we'll put it up here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have a column that is the ID. So each row is going to be a role. Perhaps user role. User roles is a better naming convention for this table. User roles, like that, okay? And each one's going to have an ID. So we know that we're going to have two rows, and it's going to be admin, and it's going to be recruiter, like that, okay? Now, what we can also do is actually, let's have another one that's read only, right? And then we'll add, and this is kind of like how you would build your status table. So just how we built the statuses table and related it back to an application, we're going to kind of do the same for this, where we're going to build out a permissions table and relate it to a user. So the next thing we're going to do is add a column in here that is the name. So that's what we're going to just display. So admin, recruiter, and read only. Okay. So this is where we now build out our logic. So when we think about an admin user and a recruiter and the things that users can do in this app, we'll go from the candidate level first. Okay, so there's adding and editing candidates. And what we're going to do is use booleans as columns. Okay, so in fact, we won't even do permissions. We'll just say can add candidates as a boolean. Just like that. And then what we're going to do is duplicate this column, and we're going to call this one can edit candidates. Okay, so we're building out a boolean column for each function that we want to allow or disallow a user from doing. And we're doing it on the basis of if it's true, they can. And this will make hopefully really good sense shortly. So the next thing to do is think about applications. So we've got candidates and we've got applications. So again, we're going to duplicate this one. I'm going to say can add applications. And we're also going to have another one that says can edit applications. We've now got one called, so what else do we have? We've got the application status as well. So can change application status. Okay. And we've got jobs. So can add jobs. Can edit jobs. And finally, we're going to have two more. And these two are to do with user management. So the first one is going to be can manage users. And the next one and the last one is going to be can assign users. Because what we're also going to do here is look at assignment. So assigning a recruiter to an application so that they're responsible for it. So we've built out this kind of permissions table here. And now what we're going to do is go through and actually set up who can do what. And we can change this whenever we like. So admin basically can do everything. The recruiter, we probably don't want them to be able to add candidates or edit candidates. We probably don't want them to be able to add or edit applications. We do want them to be able to change the application status. And we don't really want them to be able to do anything else. But let's say for this, that actually they can edit applications. And this is a great example because they might need to be able to go in and change an application if they're dealing with this particular one. And then we've got read-only, who cannot do any of these things. They just can see the information throughout the application. And what we're now going to do is come to our users table here, and we're going to create some users and name them appropriately. So we're going to get rid of V88. In fact, before we do so, really important thing to check is, have we got any comments that will be left empty? Yes, we have. In fact, let's delete all of these. Always keep it nice and clean. When you're building out an app like this, it's always good to just reset, and make sure there's no kind of confusing or missing or unrelated data anywhere. So we're going to delete V88 apps as a user, and we're going to have Oscar admin. We're also going to have a user called, what should we call the recruiter? Roger. Roger recruiter. Okay, and we're going to introduce a new column here, and that is the role/ID. And this is just text, and it's nothing to do with the actual role column in Glide. Nothing to do with it at all. We've just called it role ID. And what I'm going to do over here is we're going to take the ID of the admin role, we're going to paste it into here, and we're going to take the ID of the user role, of the recruiter role, and we're going to paste it into there. So now we've got the ID from our roles table in the admin table. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do, which should come as no surprise, is create a relation. So we're going to have a role relation. And what this is going to do is it's going to relate to items where the value in role ID matches the value in user roles, our new table, ID. And then we're going to be relating back to one of the rows in our roles table there. So if we click on here, we can see that row is being pulled through. Then what we're going to do is, and this is a little bit tedious to begin with, but once it's in place, it's brilliant. We're going to look up all of these booleans. Okay, so we're now going to have a add column right, and this is going to be a lookup on the role relation at looking at can add candidates. And we're going to call this permission / can add candidates. Okay, so as we can see, for Oscar, who has the admin role, this is true. And for Roger, who is a recruiter, it's false. And then we're going to duplicate this, and we're going to go all the way through and just change the wording on our column so that now we're looking at and the slashing technique again coming into play. It just keeps things super clean. I'm going to duplicate. Oh, need to remove the word copy on that. Duplicate again. And this one is going to be looking at the next permission, which is can add applications. Okay. And again, this one looking at can edit applications. The reason I'm duplicating the column is simply because it's more straightforward to do that than it is to create a lookup and find the relation and go and find the column every time, because you can just kind of go through and pick the next one in this instance. So it's just a simple way to produce columns that are very similar but just looking at slightly different row. So this one is can edit applications. So there you go. We know that the recruiter and the admin can both edit applications. Duplicate again. This one is for can change application status. And another one. Can add jobs. Okay. Can edit jobs. Next one. Can manage users. And then finally, can assign users. Great. So we now have customizable permissions that we can go in and edit from the data. And we can also add more and simply just look them up in the user table. So an example would be just this is a made up one, right? But can do X. So let's say that admin can't, but the recruiter can. So if we come back into our table now and we duplicate this and we go and actually look for our new one, there it is, right? So it's this is how you kind of build out the permissions table. This is one way of doing it, and it's, as I say, it's really clean. We have built solutions where there are 7 or even 10 different types of users with 20, 30, 40 different sort of things that they can or can't do, and we'll build it out like this, and it just makes perfect sense when you look at it like this. So you can see for a given user what they can actually do. So that's great. We have a data structure now for permissions. Let's go and actually see if we can implement it. So this is where, and the reason that we're pulling these into the user profile is because we can access the user profiles row from anywhere in the app. So let's go and actually build in this functionality now. And it's this simple. So we'll select, in this case, we want to manage who can add a candidate. And luckily, earlier on, we switched to custom actions. So we have more flexibility on these. And what we can do in here is add a condition. And this condition is going to say allow action when the user profile permission can add candidates is checked. So it knows it's a Boolean, it gives us that option. Okay, so Oscar can add candidates, but what I'm hoping is when we view as Roger, the action disappears. So Roger does not have the permission to add candidates. And now let's go and apply it here as well. So currently viewing as Roger, the recruiter, I can edit these. So coming down here, adding a condition when the user profile permission can edit candidates is checked. So Roger cannot edit a candidate. So we come in here, can see cannot edit this candidate. Okay. Now the next permissions that we have to look at, if we come back to our data, is applications. So adding and editing applications and changing their status. So let's come over here and let's apply our logic. So on our actions, so this is the one to add an application. We've selected the applications collection here, and the add button, we're going to put our permissions on. When the user profile permission can add applications is checked. So Roger cannot add applications, and again for edit, we're going to apply that when the user profile permission can edit applications is checked. Great. So we've allowed the recruiter to edit applications, which is great. So that's working exactly how we want it to. And again, they can come in here and edit it. We should probably just apply it here too. When the user profile permission can edit applications is checked. Great. Okay. So the next one to do is our jobs. Let's just make sure we've applied the edit functionality here too. Sometimes you just have to be careful and you just have to check that you've got that logic everywhere. I've just thought of a better way of doing this. I've just thought of a much better way of doing this. We're going to do some redesign work. And this is, I've just had a thought. And this is the beauty of kind of Glide and building things iteratively. There's always scope to make things better. There's always scope to go back and actually rework things. Okay, and let me try and explain my thinking here. So what I've just done is I've applied on this action here on all applications, the ability to edit an application. We've come over here and we've said, yeah, we can only do it when this permission is true. But over here, there's another set of applications here. And if we come to jobs and click on a job, we may display any applications for that job in here. So we're going to change things around and I'm going to introduce you. And this is a V88 best practice again that I would use throughout every app that you create. What we're going to do is we're going to change this action. And I'm going to come into my edit screen here and I'm actually going to copy this container. Okay, all of the fields sit in this container. And we're going to come to our collection and we're going to come over to the right here and find our edit action. And we're actually going to go and create. So what we've done is we've chosen an action that is show edit screen for this item. But if we apply logic to this one here, it's not going to reflect wherever else somebody goes to edit an application. Okay, so we're going to go on down here, we're going to go to actions for applications. We're going to create a new one. And it's going to be called edit application. And it's going to show an edit screen for this item in an overlay. So nothing's going to change. Okay, but this is now a custom action. And in the action, we can add a condition. And what this condition says is the user profile permission can edit applications is checked. Okay, so Glide have also added these branches, so you can add branch and you can have all sorts of deep-rooted conditional logic on a particular action. But this one, we're gonna configure the permission here inside the action. Okay. Now, when we come out of here, what we'll see is that if we come into our permissions table here, into our roles, and we say, actually, we don't want the recruiter to edit an application. Now, when we come back, Roger doesn't see it. But when we look at our actions on this collection, the condition isn't here. It's inside the action here. And I hope that you see the difference there and why I thought, actually, let's go back and rework this. Because now, when we come to our applications view here, we want to actually change the action so that it's not showing an edit screen. We can remove this permission. So right now, Roger can do it. And we're going to apply our action here that we've just created. Boom. Now, anywhere that we want to deploy the same action with all of the conditions and permissions on it, we can do so. So coming in here now, again, I think we have an action here. Yeah, we don't need this anymore. Actions for applications, edit application. So the edit application action now sits within our action library, and we can use this wherever we want. And typically what I'd recommend, and this is somewhat advanced gliding because a lot of people aren't even aware that you can build applications like this, and apologies for going off on a slight tangent there, but when we build software using Glide, all of our actions, any add or edit forms, they all sit within here so that we can configure logic and rules and all sorts of different steps to that action. An example might be, and I'll give you another example as to why we want to be doing things like this and why it was beneficial to rework this. Let's say that you wanted an audit trail whenever somebody edited an application and you wanted to see who changed it and when, which perhaps at some stage we could actually build into this if I do end up doing sort of another session. What you would be able to do is come straight here, is to introduce a new table of audits, of sort of audit trails, and you could have something that when somebody submits this action, you add rows to your audit trail history. So that's just one example of where you can kind of come in and change logic in order to enhance an action that is being used in multiple places. I hope that makes sense. So we've introduced our edit application permission. We've introduced our add and edit candidate permission. The last one to do is jobs. So I'm not going to go and change all of the actions now so that they're custom actions, but it's hopefully really useful and a great best practice. So we're going to come in here and say, we'll allow this when the user profile permission can add jobs is checked. And the same for edit. When the user profile permission can edit jobs is checked. Okay, so Roger now suddenly has very limited functionality, but we do want him to be able to edit an application. So we're going to come back in here and say, yeah, the recruiter can. Now, any user who's added as a recruiter with this ID will have the same permissions as Roger. Okay. So the last one is can manage users and can assign users. And so we're just going to build out this functionality now. So hopefully when Roger hovers over these, he can edit them. Great, he can. So that's perfect. So let's add another tab to this app, and it can be our users tab, our user management tab. And we're going to view as Oscar admin, who, there you go, can now add things.
Hope that you enjoyed Oscar's video. If you have any questions at all, please just leave a comment below. If you want to get Oscar's full Glide Apps course, check the link in the description or go to nocode.mba to view our full Glide course, where we go into a lot more detail about how to build advanced features in Glide. Thanks again for watching. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to get all of our future free content, and I'll see you in the next video.